Hi, I'm Olivia, she, her, from upstate New York. I've been in New York City since 2008.
Okay, my name's Rihanna. My pronouns are she and her, and I live in Manhattan.
My name is Joanne Matthias. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am from Queens, New York.
So my name is Natalie. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am originally from Colombia, but I grew up in New York City my whole life.
I sing, I dance, I get into mischief with my daughter. A lot of cooking, a lot of interestingly parental advice giving to our community of other parents.
I love modeling. I love women empowerment. Anything that has to do with healing and spirituality is like my favorite thing to do.
I work in healthcare at a clinic in Crown Heights, primary care, which is cool because I applied to school to become a doctor.
It's a labor of love. I'm a mom.
So I just started grad school again, so I'm a PhD student in chemistry.
I work at the Alliance Against Sexual Assault, and that's where I heard about the Survivors magazine, and I got a chance to look at a copy, which was really awesome, and I was just blown away from the very first time I opened the book. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
The time I actually heard about Survivors magazine was because of the advocacy work that I did, and I was a part of the student-run club called Students for Sexual Respect at NYU, and Maria had actually just made the first edition.
So I was on the Alliance's website and just perusing through.
It definitely helped me in my healing process because I was afraid to talk about it because I felt like since I never said anything, it didn't matter, and people would probably think it didn't happen. And so I really had to mentally and emotionally prepare myself to put myself out there, because this is something that I encourage so many survivors to do, because it was very healing for me, and it gave me a chance to take my story and shape it the way that I want to shape it. And I think that's most important, because not everything has to be so traumatic and stay traumatic, like I always want to turn everything in my life into something beautiful.
I think the experience itself was, although it was very nerve-wracking, before the shoot and everything, it was kind of fun and a little bit bizarre, because my setting I chose to do at a public park outside in New York City winter. So we're changing into gowns outside, and it was a very low stakes situation. So it was just very comfortable and not super scary in the moment.
It was really cool to see people working on this project that were really passionate and dedicated, and really just going out of their way to make this what it was, which was an excellent magazine, a really great opportunity for survivors to get together at the event afterwards, where they had the gallery hosting, which I thought was really, really fun. I got to bring two of my best friends, and they were really proud of me for doing that, and it was cool to be able to be there with them, and then the community as a whole, which was very welcoming. And I don't know, it was a night I won't forget.
It helped validate my fight. It helped make me realize that even though I knew it before, sometimes you need that reassurance that, hey, what you're going through is not your fault, and that you're powerful, you're still powerful, and you're able to, spread your message. And this was a good medium to help me with that.
I love that I was able to have full creative control. So I thought that was so cool. So I was able to sit down and look up pictures. I'm like, okay, I want this to look like this. It just made me feel so good.
They were really accommodating. They offered to come to my home, and they spent hours here, trying to. Initially, I wanted to have my daughter in the spread with me, and they worked really hard, and they were really fun and respectful, and very creative.
So I kind of had two separate storylines that I was following. The first was doing a 3-picture series kind of depicting my transition throughout not just college, but before, during, and after the assault. And then similarly, because I was reaching back before the assault, I had to kind of think about how I came to be conditioned in a certain way that really made all dealing with the assault much more difficult.
It's actually done in this neighborhood because this is where I live, and it was a bit about reclaiming the space here where I was assaulted around here, and I was able to do a photo shoot there with the whole crew and everyone, and then I had my dog, which was also pretty. It was like the pictures were great, and it was something that might have been a little scary, and I'm glad I did it because it was able to give me a different memory around this place, which is where I live and which is where I love this neighborhood and not moving.
My first thought process on it, when they explained what was going to happen, I thought, after my experience, I knew my mission was to help children, not particularly children, but my mission is to help educate parents, help them become aware of potential risks, I guess, with children and what can happen regarding relationships or inappropriate, boundaries and things like that with other people.
I really wanted to show off my sweet side, but also like still be fierce in a sense. And being a plus size girl, I wanted to also show sexy as well, because I deserve to be sexy in the skin that I'm in. And also, like, just because I'm a Black woman doesn't mean I'm, always angry. So I wanted to show a soft side and incorporate flowers and really enhance my melanin in the process.
So that's why I chose the setting, which was a park that I used to hang out in like middle school every day, and nothing necessarily traumatizing happened in that park, but I just felt like that was a time when a lot of like my autonomy was corrupted, and I never really was able to form my own autonomy and learn about like what consent is. So all of that kind of just came like crumbling down, and then once you actually do face like really bad trauma, it's so much harder to get any help because you feel so internally damaged.
Once again, it helped me realize that I'm tough, and that even though my whole story is I had an NDA, so I'm not allowed to just go into detail and talk about things, but this was my way of still being able to share my story and to sort of send a message to the perpetrator or whoever knew about my story that an NDA is not going to silence me. An NDA ultimately is not for the survivor's protection, it's for the perpetrator's protection.
Or if we are going to be vulnerable and share those experiences, we need to know that there's somebody on the other end that's going to listen, especially when it comes to reporting these crimes and getting persecution. The statistics are dismal, so it's important that people report things, and the system in place right now is not going to work for people. That was the worst part of my experience, if I'm being honest, was reporting it to the NYPD. So
this is something that gives back, and it's a gift that keeps on giving, because I've learned, and now I'm going to take what I learned and implement it in my dream.
I think it was just learning how to be kinder to yourself when you're when you're like looking back at that version of yourself that went through all the trauma and was in the darkest places, because it's just too easy to kind of disregard that part of you and just say like, I don't recognize who that shell of a person was. But it's so much more healing to kind of like create a relationship with that person, and it's hard, but it's so much better to hold yourself with compassion in those moments and realize that there were so many examples of you being strong, even by just getting out of bed or going to class. And I think I don't know if it was a coincidence, but when I was revisiting some of that, I also revisited the photo shoot, the spread, and originally I loved my final picture, which was the happier, like more resilient version of myself. But when I revisited it, I actually started to love that middle picture that was supposed to represent the darkest. I had like an all black outfit under like knitting, and it was just very trapped and very isolated, but I had like this bright red lip, and I didn't choose that, the designers did, and I think it just really kind of, looking back at it, I had this different perception of, you didn't even know what you were capable of doing in that moment, and there's just so much like fire ready to come out.
Personally, there's days where I'm depressed. I have highs and lows like anyone else, and I never thought I would ever be that person who sometimes doesn't want to get out of bed. But it's all up here. I think for me, I have to remind myself every day, oh, you live in peace, you have food to eat, it's the little things, you have health. And for me, it's all about reminding myself all the time, and not being, not letting the negative come, affect me.
I think what's so unique about 5 is that it's very literally like giving the platform to a survivor, which is to be, like, you're giving a platform to survivors to be seen and to be heard, and that's like unheard of everywhere else. There's so many organizations that have resources and create awareness around this, but actually giving a survivor a platform is really helpful, and it can just create so much growth for these survivors that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. But it's nice to have a team there, and it's nice to be able to create a vision that is completely your own. It's amazing.
It helped me realize what it is that I want to do, and I want to be on camera, and I want to tell my short story, and I also want to help survivors and women of color who don't have an opportunity to speak their truth and who are silenced, and just allow people to recreate their story, reframe their story in the way that they want to. And I thank you guys for giving me that opportunity. And so with what I've learned, I want to give back and keep the dream going.